Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun. All right. Good morning, everybody. Well, yesterday was quite the day in the trading world, and after all the craziness that happened yesterday, like the fundamental situation is, as far as I can tell, the same. But we had a bunch of headlines. The markets moved on and then gave them back and moved again. And I am just terrified to trade this now. I'm just terrified to trade this market. I'm sure many others are. Let's go to the charts real quick. We only got a minute before the unemployment reports or unemployment claims. You can see treasuries were on a pretty good run starting the day out, but they gave up pretty much all of it. Now in the overnight, we are kind of building that back a little bit. But there does kind of seem to be this tendency, like some people just really want to sell treasuries. Probably because, you know, there is some money moving over to Europe. Here, the S&P 500 seems to have handled it okay. That initial jump, though, was pretty good. Here's oil dumping yesterday. Okay, here's the news. Hold on. 5 seconds. Their expectation is 222, and we're going to get 222. Okay. Back to the chart. Yesterday with OPEC, there was a lot of drama at OPEC, and some countries basically were like, we have to continue producing. We can't afford to cut. So more oil supply than expected, and that is, I believe, why oil kind of took a bit of a tumble yesterday. Gold still kind of reeling after the drawdown that we had earlier this week off of trade optimism here. So it's very interesting. You can see I really think that this is like people taking positions off, like all that stuff that happened yesterday. People aren't picking up new positions. They took their old positions off, and that is why gold seemed to be the most effective and affected and gave so much back. You can see here's silver. Silver, they didn't have as much of a position in silver, so silver is kind of like not hit at all, right? Copper, kind of the same thing. Here's the Japanese yen. The Japanese yen did give some back, and the dollar, dollar came back to like 99.5, but there is a little bit of selling here this morning. And then finally, Bitcoin. Bitcoin has really been pumping hard through all of this. I think that the whales are kind of like, we gotta put on a show to attract people in, but I think the issue is that people just don't care what it does anymore. Doesn't seem like, whatever pattern or however much it goes up or whatever, like the public still doesn't care. I really think that the public is kind of like, yeah, we know about Bitcoin, and the people that care about it are in it, and the people that don't care about it aren't in it. And I don't know if there's more people out there to come into Bitcoin. Okay, now we did get some selling off of that headline, interestingly enough. U.S. durable goods was 9.2% versus an expected 2%, and core durable goods was 0 versus an expected spot 3. So big change in autos, I guess. Or what are the durable goods that don't fit into the core? I'm not entirely sure. Because usually it's autos, but detail. Excluding transportation items. Okay. Well, that is very, very interesting. Seems like a little bit more aggressive of a sell than I would expect, but overall, the treasuries have been on a pretty steady buy. Can you see here? Oh, by the way, turn on the algo. The algo did terrible yesterday, by the way. Terrible yesterday. Actually, terrible this week. Should I show you? Let me show you. It's actually starting to give me like the, oh, you know, somebody's trading against it vibes. Because if I just do, no, let's just do this week. So from the 21st to today, the 24th, yeah. Is that right? Yes, it is. Okay. So that win rate, not very good. 36.84. Despite the average winning trade and average losing trade being roughly the same. Now, you'll notice, okay, there is like the largest winner and largest loser are larger than that because there is like the set take profit, right? But interestingly enough, the average MAE and average MFE is also 4. And ain't that curious? That I think is really, really curious. Actually, let's come and look at it from I mean, there were some points where it was okay, but MAE. Well, there's a few that went like 6 in favor and then flipped on them. So if you said like, let's always take profit at +4, right? Wouldn't really do anything. But that's just kind of what's happening. So like the exits aren't good. And I think that is kind of indicative of that while there are some large meta orders out there, there is so much activity and the market is so illiquid that the strategy just doesn't work very well under those circumstances, right? It'll catch a little bit of a meta order and it'll get like +4 and then something else comes in and pushes it the other way and then it tries to flip around and doesn't do it quickly enough. So but that's what I expected. Again, I don't expect that this algorithm as it is currently constructed to be long-term profitable. I expect it to be profitable in some types of markets. And I'm hoping that I can find some better ways to filter when it should take it and when it shouldn't. So did it actually take a trade there or while I was talking? I don't think it did. Oh, no. Well, but it does say that it is long. So it looks like it didn't take that one, and but it is taking that one. No, it should be long, but it didn't catch it. I catch it. Okay, well, anyways, good morning, Uzi. Good morning, Octavius. I am a little worried from what I'm seeing here so far. The range is, I'd say, about normal. The activity level, I'd say, is slightly above average, but normal for Thursday. We do have a 7-year auction today, don't we? I don't have that listed on my calendar here. Hold on a second. But I read on my news squawk that it was a 7-year auction today. So am I crazy? No, okay, it is. There's a 7-year auction today. There's 4-week bill auction. Kansas City Fed manufacturing. Existing home sales. Okay, so I am seeing activity in line with the day when we would be getting a decent amount of, you know, economic data and treasury auctions, right? And that it is a treasury auction here. Well, actually, Octavius is noticing too, strong delta 31K for the day. Yeah, there's a pretty strong and consistent cumulative delta long in the 10-year treasury for sure. And it seems I haven't seen any big icebergs or some of that other stuff that I would expect to see on the 7-year. But I think that seeing that on an auction day is a good sign. I do kind of wonder if, like, you know, because the 2-year auction wasn't very good, that perhaps the foreign the foreign buyers are going to just be going further out in the curve. So it seems like every time that we have an auction where, like, you know, one of the numbers within the auction seems incredibly weak, that number ends up being incredibly strong in the auctions that follow it, right? And you find out that actually they're just kind of shifting where they are acting in the curve, and that it's not that those people aren't buying anymore. So yeah, this would be interesting. We got anything else here? Should keep in mind. Oh, looks like. Oh, somebody here on Discord needs permissions. Very good. What does he got here? He got a system? I can't wait to expose myself to you guys. That's not the kind of language that I want to hear. That was a good little jump there, huh? It seems that I did not engage the algo early enough, but let's see here, 29.5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So almost to the take profit. But that might mean that it didn't quite get there. China dismisses reports of U.S. trade progress as fake news and demands removal of unilateral tariffs before negotiating table. I wonder. I'm a little worried that what will happen next is Donald Trump will come out and will be like, actually, they're not negotiating with us, so we've decided that it will be a 145% tariff. They call the tariffs unilateral, but Donald Trump called them reciprocal, right? Because I think... Yeah, oh, man. So I don't know how you solve this from, like, a negotiating position. I think Donald Trump's got his work cut out for him. Because China, their whole point is that they don't want to be held hostage every time that somebody in the United States is feeling like causing trouble. And, you know, that they're creating tariffs and they think this is unfair and yada, yada, yada. But the United States is saying, well, no, you've been cheating for years and years and years, and we're finally doing something about it. See? And so there's no way to start the negotiations in that situation. Okay, well, there's some into O3. You know, this is actually very interesting and surprising because the jobless claims data, well, let's just come back here and look. They were looking for a rating of 222 and we got in line 222. US durable goods, they were looking for 9.2% or they were looking for 2% and they got 9.2%. What about continued jobless claims? Continued jobless claims, they were looking for 1.868 and they got 1.841. So that was me. I stopped submitting jobless claims and I fell off the rolls. That's what the problem was. Sorry if you were looking for a bad number. When that number hit, we got this little drop that you see here on the chart in the upper left corner. But then ever after that, it's just been bye. Yeah. And in fact, the 10-minute imbalance is getting to some very extreme levels. So that would not, it would be touching the target, but not a fill yet. Oh, there's a robot I missed on Discord. Show the trade that you take. Well, I don't think I'm going to take any discretionary trades, but if you look at the chart up here on the upper left, you can see what the algorithm that we're testing is doing. The algorithm that we're testing apparently went long here. So you can't, so I didn't enable it early enough, apparently, but it does say that it's long. You see that it's long there, but you don't see the execution. So that means that had I turned it on when I was supposed to over here, that it would have taken a long here and gotten out. Anyways. But it's basically knocking on the door of the profit here. Say they gonna pull it? Oh, 3.5. Maybe not. Now that I'm like, this market is too scary to trade, we're just gonna have like the craziest uptrend ever in treasuries, right? I don't know, man. This degree of imbalance is a little scary. It's very, very bizarre to me, honestly, because, yesterday they had a pretty good uptrend. We did not have even anywhere close to this degree of imbalance. And there's kind of been this thing where, for various reasons, it kind of looks like that there are a lot of people that just want to sell treasuries right now for whatever reason. And we're getting this really aggressive buy is very, and I'm like, when I think about like my predictors of order flow that I got here, well, we had the economic news. It's a Thursday. We tend to have okay flows on Thursday. We're in the quieter part of the month. Yeah, we're in the quieter part of the month, and we have a treasury auction today. So the only thing that would have me be like, maybe they're gonna buy it today, is a treasury auction. Would we really get that strong of an imbalance? What do you mean by imbalances? So this indicator right here, which is part of my indicator suite, you can download it at speculatorseth.com for NinjaTrader, is market order imbalance. Tells you buys compared to sell over the past 10 minutes or whatever period you set, right? So it's saying that there were points where we got above a 65% imbalance in favor of buyers. That 65% of the orders were buy. That's very, very aggressive and extreme. They usually don't get above 60%. In fact, we had kind of set our algorithm to trigger at like a 3% imbalance. That's 60 is a 10% imbalance, and we had it set to trigger at 3. Right? So like, it's pretty extreme. By the way, we went well past our target, didn't we? You know what I'm noticing though is a really, really strong shift in the yield curve. The 2-year just skyrocketed up here. I mean, it was buying across the whole curve, but especially in the 2-year. So that is maybe a little bit disconcerting. That is a kind of setup where like they buy the treasuries and then turn around and sell the equities. And the equities do look kind of like a little vulnerable here. You say that ZT is at the week's VWAP and reversing off of it? There was a decent amount of volume up there in the 5-year that I'm not quite seeing in the well, maybe I just need to have the 2-year up here, because the volume profile from here is pretty disorganized. Although there is this kind of bump right there like that. But right now, it kind of looks like that we had a really strong order flow came through. And I didn't really see those sorts of like good distribution and signs that it was like coming off and forming a hole and it was going to, it didn't do any of that. Kind of came back kind of randomly. Close your long from 2020. Oh, 223. That's interesting. You're taking positions in the 2-year. And the pullback to 03 is not seem like a huge deal to me. But there was, you can see a little bit of a change A little bit of things rebalancing, right? I'm still kind of keeping my eye out though for like signs of a liquidity hole. There's 11K stuck at 1 and they should get tested with a V1. I don't think we should say should, right? I don't want to say should unless I have really strong historical data that says that tends to happen. Okay. See, are we coming back up to 04 half? The imbalance continues to be there. Like I could be wrong, but I'm getting signs that we are still in the midst of a really massive meta order long. And who knows where it will peter out. There you go. So when they ticked up, immediately 1700 hit into 05 half. Oh, so you know what? I forgot. There's something else I need to mention. Look at the cost basis lines. Look at how far above the dotted line we are. Like, the whole thing is that when you have a trend day, it you know, we tend to like ride that line over and over or stay above that line. I don't think I've ever seen it that extreme. So I'm not entirely sure what is happening, but it just kind of shows you like the buy that we're having. You might look at it on your DOM and say, well, you know, to go from 30 to 04, that's like not necessarily a crazy move or anything. But in terms of the amount of imbalance, that is the number of market buys to market sells, we are seeing a very, very extreme imbalance for some reason. We assume that is a seller's stop zone or whatever. It stands to reason a trend day would form from sellers dumping unproductive inventory or vice versa. Well, I mean, sure, but like, it's not a behavior that we see very often, right? Like, any time that you get to that line, that means that there's no possibility that any market maker short could be making money is what that line means. I haven't ever been able to find any kind of like tendency for like, you know, if they go through the line that there's stop outs past it or anything like that. It's kind of more that like once you get to that line, it's very, very difficult to stay above it. And the only times that they really do seem to stay above it is on a trend day. Yeah, they'd have to buy to bring their cost basis up, and they're definitely not, right? They're the cost basis lines aren't coming up very quickly because market makers are not taking on very much short inventory up here. They are mostly jumping out of the way. And you wouldn't expect them to, because when you have an imbalance that big, all of their models are going to look at it and say, this, you know, this is probably an informed flow and you don't want to touch it, right? But if we don't think of it as like market makers and think of it more from like swing trades and other kind of large flows that have been taking positions over the past week, I'm not sure I see the like what would be causing somebody to unwind long right now. So I'm not sure if we can explain this flow with that it's coming endogenously, let's say. That it's coming from like existing positioning. I'm thinking that for whatever reason they have decided that the current market pricing is not realistic for the auction. It is kind of like, where were we when this started? 4.35. And the last auction was like 4.23. Yeah. This pullback seems a little bit more serious. And we are kind of getting, I would say that the distribution still looks pretty disorganized, but we did get a little bit of, you know, 17,000 at 04. The imbalance is continuing though. Here's an interesting post on Reddit. Doomers are economically illiterate. The amount of times I've heard the tariffs will cause a recession is kind of funny, given since there is no actual evidence that tariffs themselves lead to recessions as some sort of direct cause. That does not mean tariffs do not have ridiculous downside. When a recession actually does occur, it makes it ridiculously hard to recover, i.e. after the Great Depression. It leads people to do otherwise more inefficient things for work. It can increase the chance of wage price spirals. It can reduce margins and increase inflation by reducing aggregate market supply. However, that can take literally years, and you might experience a 2 to 3 year bull market before the full reality of that dawns upon you and your day-to-day life. I don't think that the increases from tariffs is really going to hit consumers for a couple more months at least. Something that I find kind of curious is that It seems like, when people get concerned about an issue like that, like, oh, we're going to have a recession because of tariffs, right? They're going to consume just massive amounts of media about that issue. And so they might feel that they are very informed because they're consuming so much media about that issue, but they lack the basis, the foundation to really understand and put all of the information that they're consuming in context. There was a nice little multi-tick dump there, yeah. Well, it was coming up. It was coming back up, and then somebody cut it down. Granted, it was just a little blip, but still. Like in terms of the larger overall trend and like the volume, it becomes a little blip. But that is definitely something that always kind of like catches my attention, because when you're having a big trend like that and it ends and then you have the mean reversion period, but that is when it's most vulnerable. So if somebody comes in and tries to push it back down, and that's why you will often get these situations where you feel like you've made a huge winner and then it comes all the way back on you. It's because a counter flow came in and pushed against it, used that big flow up as an opportunity to push it back in the direction that they want it to go. And it happens enough that, I'm always kind of like a little bit wary when we're having a strong trend, looking for like that counter flow. I don't think that that's enough to say that we're getting a counter flow, but it's definitely caught my attention. The robot might be looking for a short here soon. This guy on this subreddit, I've heard the stock market is an indicator of the state of the economy. And then others say the stock market is a scam where billionaires play in their own rigged casino. Basically a paragraph apart on some posts freaking out about the tariffs. Yes, because we've been taught that the market is informationally efficient, and we can't seem to score that away with the obvious our own experience. How can I say that more eloquently?
Order submitted.
It's gonna go long again. I was wrong. I thought that we were gonna get to enough of a sell-in balance, but what happened there is it came back to 53 and it's jumping back up, and so that triggered it long. This isn't the first time that it's taken a trade in that situation, and I don't really like it. I think I need to put something in there to say that, I'm not taking the cross of that line as a long signal if we were above that line anywhere in the last 10 minutes or something like that. So that as it comes back, that little bump up, because I'm concerned that the selling continues here. And if that happens, then it's going to flip back around at some point. Wait, what price did it take, though? 12 half. Oh, no. 111.125. 04. Oh, that's terrible. That's so terrible. That was like, that situation perfectly screwed it over. Testing that 01? Maybe. You think it's going to cross this gap right here? The thing is, we still haven't come to a, like, below 50%. Like, it never during any of this has it been more sells than buys in the 10-minute period. You're first in the queue at the point at 30? Oh, that's interesting. Okay, yeah, down 3 ticks. I don't know. When I look at the chart, it's like, oh, that's such a terrible position. But when I see that it's only minus 3 ticks, I'm like, no, it's not the end of the world. People can't seem to reconcile what they've been taught with their own obvious experience. All of the economics and what the government says and what your economics textbook says is that markets are informationally efficient. And anybody that's ever bothered to look at the market, it's very obvious right away that it's not informationally efficient. Like yesterday was so crazy because we had like the market reacted and then the market reacted and they were reacting to a headline that was just a repeat of a headline that we had gotten 12 hours earlier. Right? It was like Donald Trump says it. Yeah, not too much happens, but we're kind of up. The Wall Street Journal says it. The same thing. Huge buy. And then other headline comes in, completely cuts it down. And then like by the end of the day, there was another headline that was like really like the final say like, okay, this is actually what it should be. No reaction. Because it's just traders trading. I need my mug, except for that I've been using my mug and putting pencils in it. So. For some reason, all of a sudden, I'm feeling a little woozy. So every time that I start to feel like this, I start to say, you know, is this some sort of blood sugar thing? What is the deal with that? But I had a bran muffin and eggs for breakfast. Like, I really don't feel like I should be getting that. Though I did eat I ate like a fudge bar or something like that before I went to bed last night. Could that really be affecting me now, though? Silent reflex? I don't know. I just kind of feel like woozy, like I need to focus or I'll pass out, you know? So this kind of like this big sell that we saw, one setup that I used to follow, and I think that the main reason I stopped following it, aside from, you know, kind of what is the word, you know, giving up all setups like that, but it just wasn't common enough anymore. But it's like you'd get a strong uptrend, and then, you know, it would fall like 3 or 4 ticks all at once. I think this is a setup that that No BS day trading talks about, right? It'll come back and you buy it there and it'll continue back up. I don't know. In that situation, it comes back up quicker. So I don't know if you could qualify this as that. But it's kind of looking like that, right? Like we had a sell, it was really strong, and the imbalance long continues, and they've recovered it already. I think that algo, for whatever reason, the price that the simulator gave me was too high. I think that it would have got more likely gotten 03 or 03 half, not 04. So that's odd. And while I'm feeling this, I'm also like, my leg just wants to bounce. Oh, now I'm getting cold sweat. Should I burp? I am kind of feeling a little bit of discomfort in my gut, so it could be colon. At this point, though, it could be it. You know, there might have been something going on that triggered it, but now it's might be all in my head, right? Like it might be. I'm gonna lay down for a second. Is it possible to make music at a similar volume? Do you because you feel like that the music should be louder? Well, first of all, we can turn it up a little bit because it's like way lower than my voice. And I can add ducking to it, yes. So when the days where, you know, I turned the stream to the automated stop and let it go, and then I got to work and came in and looked on the stream, I really didn't like the music. It didn't sound as good through the stream. And yeah, the quote here, I'll show you. We can do that. Oh, actually, I do have it doing that. It's already doing it. So if I turn the music all the way up, maybe not all the way up. And now when I start talking, it goes down. Maybe change the ratio a little bit there. Is that kind of the effect you're talking about? Do you guys prefer that volume? I would kind of feel like for most of you that would be too loud. Turn it down a little bit. See, Uzi likes it better. Well, how about there? Or would you prefer it even lower from here? Yeah, ambient music. I mean, that's kind of always the way that I had it, yeah. But I had it more at like 40% instead of 50%. 50% is probably better. Like right there. Feeling a little better. I definitely lost some color. Now that's interesting. No, you're right though. You know, it's something that's really interesting about the camera is that the camera picks up red and changes in red better than your eyes do. But I kind of wonder, it seems to me that like the human eye can pick up perceivable differences in redness, but it doesn't do so consciously. That's why all these girls on TikTok, they've figured out that if they add the right blush, it really, really helps their videos out. And I don't think, you know, and most people watching it don't realize that part of why they're really attracted to that girl is because of the blush. Okay, so we are getting a new point of control at 03. And it's been about 30 minutes now that we've been in this kind of range, so Seth doing a makeup tutorial next time, right? Apparently the e-girls have their own set of tradecraft on how to go viral on TikTok and everything. Put together all of your ideas, record it all when you're ovulating. And I'm not even joking, like people literally do that stuff. It's crazy. And people respond to it subconsciously. It's just a wild thing to think about that
Order
our
canceled.
conscious is unaware of these things. I'm kind of weirded out though that I'm having kind of one of these dizzy spells today, because I felt pretty good when I woke up. Feel like I ate well. I feel like that we've been pretty locked in on the stream so far today. So it really, really did come like out of nowhere, didn't it? Well, let's see here. Did the robot... Oh, no. The robot actually exited and did finally take a short? Yes. Okay. See, this trade right here... Where is the... I don't want it to take that trade. I think that if I'm gonna, you know, it was a cross above. It was a cross above. But, you know, it was coming from above anyways. So I think it needs to be cross above and the high of the last 10 minutes is below. Below or equal to that or something like that. Let's pull up the code. I've been avoiding like changing it fundamentally, but that's part of why is to see the situations where it's not really doing what I want it to do. And max of period. Wait, what does that return to me? No, that's not right. So basically it can only do it when it's coming up. I think we're definitely like we had a large meta order that has subsided and is past now. Okay. And we'll see tomorrow if. Well, actually, no. Yeah, we have to do it tomorrow. I was gonna say we should be able to use today's data to test that specific situation. But we run this. I'm concerned that there's something about adding that condition that I'm not completely realizing the consequences of, and that it will like never take trades because of that. When we start tomorrow when it's taking trades, I think we should be okay. Oh, look, there was the burp. I was thinking about this thing because there was this thread on Reddit that I brought up earlier where, somebody was talking about doomers are economically illiterate. And this guy was saying, I see some people in one sentence, they'll say this, the stock market is an indicator of the state of the economy. And then in the next sentence say that it's a scam. And what I really think is going on is that people can't reconcile what they've been taught about a market that is supposed to be perfectly efficient, where current prices reflect all available information, and the obviously inefficient market that they're seeing every day. And this is extremely distressing to many, many people when they get involved in markets, because they've been taught that the markets are supposed to reflect all available information. So if it's not reflecting all available information, their immediate conclusion is that it must be manipulation that's causing that. When the reality is that it's not all available information that determines the price. It's the orders that determine the price. And the orders don't match up with the information exactly. So, while you do have to factor in all available information yourself, like look at all of the information that we know about the economy and make your own conclusion about what the trajectory of the economy is, you can't just use that alone to predict what prices are going to be. To predict what prices are going to be, you have to predict what all of the orders are going to be. Now that there's no contradiction, the market functions exactly as you expect, and you realize that we hold it in too high esteem. It's a necessary thing, but it's not this all-knowing, all-seeing God that we make it out to be. The market is quite stupid. Wow. Trump to Putin. I am not happy with the Russian strikes on Kiev. Not necessary and very bad timing. Vladimir, stop. 5,000 soldiers a week are dying. Let's get the peace deal done. You know what? I really think that Donald Trump is just going to wash his hands of the whole Ukraine situation. I don't think that there is any realistic conclusion. Like, how do you get a peace deal? What Ukraine wants in a peace deal is never going to be acceptable to Russia. And they have absolutely zero leverage to force Russia. Because what they want their territory back. Like, all of it. Apparently. And maybe they could say all of the territory that they've took since Russia invaded, but not Crimea or something like that, right? That's what Ukraine wants. Russia's not going to do that. They already control all that area. Why would they give it up? The only way that you're going to get that territory back is with the sword. And Ukraine no longer has the ability to make that happen. And here's Donald Trump. He's trying to get them to make a deal. And as soon as it started to become a thing, Zelensky rejected the plan and Russia did strikes on Kiev. I think Trump's gonna give up. He's gonna say, okay, No more military aid. Have fun killing each other. Little concerned about where that goes next. I propose to split where the current control any of them have. You know what? I don't think that that's very practical. The whole thing is that those three obelisks are controlled by ethnic majority Russians. And those are the areas that Russia took over, right? So Russia thinks that it should have them because ethnic Russian people are there. And Ukraine thinks that it should have that area because it's always been in their borders. And so Russia is taking that space away from them, right? Russia thinks that the people in that area would prefer to be in Russia. They held referendums, of course. You know, I don't think that you can trust the result of a referendum like that. Okay, but they think that those people want to be Russians, right? Why does Kiev want it? Does Kiev want it because they think that those people want to be in Ukraine necessarily? Well, maybe they do believe that because they're not going to believe the results of the referendum. But ultimately, it's more about that's land and there's resources and stuff that they need there. Right? So, I'm not, I don't think that Russia would accept the deal where they split the difference. I'm not sure if you even could split the difference. I think the best that you could do is make the whole area that Russia has taken over as like an internationally controlled zone. Basically, neither side really gets to keep it. I guess the thing is that if Trump walks away from negotiating there, essentially, then really what you're doing is you're just saying, well, eventually Russia's going to take over. So I don't think that that's what he wants. But I don't think he wants to commit more resources to it. So I'm not exactly sure what he would do in that situation, but yeah, you're right. Russia used the same card 3 times: Moldova, Georgia, Ukraine. I would say that in each of those cases that their justification for moving in there was a little bit different, but generally speaking, it is like this is the Russian sphere of influence, essentially, right? I mean, the reality is that the real reason Russia is taking those areas over. Hold on a second, my grandma's here and wants to ask me a question. The reality is that Russia is controlled by this extreme nationalist regime that has this insane belief that they have to control all of these areas of land that are in other countries but were traditionally under the Russian sphere of influence in order for Russia to be safe. That's the reality, right? That's why Russia is doing what it's doing. And it comes up with plausible reasons for what they're doing that are plausible enough for the international community to not just immediately step in and stop it. Right? Like, it's why wasn't and it really was it, well, you say Moldova, but wasn't it Ossetia? Was Ossetia and then Georgia? Why wasn't both of those like the Iraq War, you know? In the Iraq War, they invaded Kuwait, and the international community said, no, you can't just invade another country, and so we're going to stop you. And then Russia goes and invades another country, and they don't do anything. Why? Well, because Russia is a thermonuclear power. Iraq was not. And they already kind of didn't like Iraq super, super bad. And the oil was strategically important to the West. And Georgia and Ossetia and all these other places nobody really cares about. Why would Ukraine ever agree to that? Because I'll tell you why. If that was the proposal on the table. I mean, I haven't heard anybody propose that. But if the proposal on the table was that all of those areas just became some internationally controlled zone or something like that, why would Ukraine accept that? I'll tell you why Ukraine should accept that. Because if they don't accept that, then Russia is probably just going to destroy all of Ukraine. Like, what exactly do you guys think is going to happen? If you look at the conflict and where it is right now, and you allow it to continue to go on, what do you think is going to happen? Do you really think that it will just, be a stalemate for decades and decades and decades, and that the current lines will? It's not. Russia is fighting a war of attrition, and they have more people, and within 2 to 5 years, they would take over all of Ukraine without Western support. Neville Chamberlain and Stalin both appeased Hitler and allowed him to get... So, you know what? That's actually not accurate. So, letters and other information has come out since the whole Neville Chamberlain thing that paints the reality of that situation in a very different light. The reality of the situation was that Neville Chamberlain knew that Germany was a power-hungry monster that was just gonna, want more and more and more and try and take over the whole continent, basically. And Neville Chamberlain realized that at the time they did not have the ability to stop him. So Neville Chamberlain made the deal in the hopes that it would delay things long enough for them to prepare. And so when you look at the history with that new information, I think there's a strong argument to be made that Neville Chamberlain is actually a hero. He kind of fell on his sword in order to give everybody a chance to actually do something about it later. Now, in this case, Russia's not going to take over the whole continent, but they are going to take over, they want to take over all of these countries that were traditionally in the Russian sphere of influence. They absolutely do. They absolutely do. And that would include all of Russia, all of Ukraine, and then these other Eastern Bloc countries. Totally they would. But what are you going to do about it? We should have been more forceful in Ukraine. There should have been red line like once. I don't know, man. I don't know. There were some points in the Ukraine war where I think that if the Western powers had given Ukraine the support that Ukraine was requesting when they requested it, that they would have been able to push Russia back. But, you know, they weren't willing to commit to it at the time, and now it's too late.
Order canceled.
Okay. So do you see what I'm saying about with like it's like this 4-tick range where, you know, the market makers let it go about 4 ticks, but then when the flow flips back around, if you get in, you make 4 ticks, you lose 4 ticks. It comes out break even. That is if the flows don't continue through. We did get the one way back here that was like 12 ticks, okay? But most of the time, an imbalance does not mean a large meta order, right? Seth is trying. I'm not the one that rewrote. Listen, man. You go and watch all this stuff. Just because you're not keeping up with new developments in research and history doesn't mean that I'm trying to rewrite it. And I don't think that's fair. I'm just giving you a more accurate narrative of what actually happened based on newly revealed information. I don't care what kind of narrative you already had written in your head or is written in your book. I'm interested in what actually happened, and that's what actually happened. Was that Neville Chamberlain did not believe that if he appeased Hitler that he would stop. He knew that Hitler was going to keep going, but he made the deal in the hopes that it would buy them time, and it did. Well, I tell you what, the S&P 500 is this first 30 minutes or so has been going pretty good. They're shooting up out there. It's a good 35 point bull run. Well, I didn't say anything about Stalin, but the deal that Chamberlain made, we now know from private letters that Chamberlain was sending out at that time, that he would never, his intention was never to appease, that his intention was to delay. Yeah, it's kind of curious your reaction there, man. It's like I given you new information about history that you didn't know, and instead of going, oh well, that's a new piece of information. How does that fit in now? But instead you just get mad that there's a new piece of information. Like, that doesn't speak well to your ability to adjust your strategy when the market changes and so forth, does it? So it did get a long signal there, but it's still kind of struggling and coming down. Remember that when you're teaching history, you have to try and make it fit the political narrative of what's going on today. Don't you know that's how everyone does it? Sure. Yes, because Zelensky's whole argument is you guys really need to come in here and do something about this now, because once he takes over Ukraine, the rest of Europe is next, because he's just like Mustache Man. Yeah. And I don't doubt that Putin wants to go further, that after he take over Ukraine, that he would like to go after these other Eastern Bloc states. It's a slightly different situation because some of those are part of NATO and have like more serious security guarantees. If he attacked in those areas, then it would be instant conflict with the West. But the reality of the situation is that Russia already controls these territories, and the amount of resources that it would take to push them out is more than anybody is willing to commit to. So you can say that it's wrong all you want. I'm just telling you what's going to happen. I didn't feel this way a year ago, right? We still kind of, there was a chance, they were doing an offensive, things like that. It turns out that offensive was too late. Russians are too dug in. And you know, like Europe is stepping up a little bit, but I think that I mean, I really think that the West would have to get involved in the conflict in a way that they're just not willing to do. Now that's interesting. I don't understand that one. Why did it say it exited? Oh, it exited for news. Oh, very good, very good. Oh, over a month ago, you told us Zelensky. Well, but he kind of did, though. They haven't actually signed the mineral deal, though, have they? It was like he did apologize, essentially. I mean, like, I can go back and I can go and find the news stories where he basically came crawling back. Which is why it stopped being a story. Yes, he did. Listen, I don't think that anybody's going to agree with your view of what happened, Damanesh. But they did not sign the mineral deal yet, have they? Let's see here. Oh, well, here's something in Politico about it in the past day. Ukrainian president is desperately trying to talk to Russia and the U.S. into a ceasefire deal, but will need to convince MPs to sign off on. Well, no, where's the stuff about mineral deal? Oh, that's cute. It's in the headline, but there's not anything in the actual story about it. This Ukrainian mining company is losing hope in Trump's mineral deal. So they're still trying to negotiate it. Well, why did you choose to delete that question, Octavius? President Vladimir Zelensky apologized for the heated argument in the White House between him and U.S. President Donald Trump, U.S. Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff said in a television interview with Fox News on March 10th. Witkoff is part of a U.S. delegation set to meet Ukrainian officials in Saudi Arabia on March 11th in the first high-level talks between the two nations since the White House clash. The mineral deal is supposedly still being negotiated, though. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it is time to go. All right, guys. I gotta get going. Maybe we can continue this tomorrow, but I don't know if the mineral deal will get signed. Yeah, aren't you supposed to? Thanks, Susie. You're 2 minutes late. That's okay. By the way, I didn't hear, Financial just didn't say anything about news, but my thing thought that there was news. Oh, yes, there was. Existing home sales change negative 5.9% versus an expected negative 3.05%. So we got 4.02 versus the 4.13 million. And maybe a little bit of buying afterwards. All right. Good game. Yeah, we had fun, guys. We can continue arguing about it tomorrow. I will see you then. In the meantime, stay. Oh man, what goalpost moving? He apologized, but he never crawled. Okay, this is such a joke, dude. Okay, later.